Well, let's get more now on our top story. An investigation into the UK's biggest ever maternity scandal has concluded that the deaths of 201 babies and 9 mothers could have been prevented. The report on Shrewsbury and Telford Hospital NHS Trust investigated several hundred cases over a 20-year period. Well, Stephanie Pryor is head of clinical negligence and child abuse litigation at Osbornes Law and joins me now. Thank you very much for being with us. I gather you represent a family who lost a child last year, but I mean, this must be an incredibly difficult read for all the families involved.
I think so. I think the main reason for that is because this has been going on for such a long time and lessons haven't been learned, and that doesn't help the families who've come into play later on in the timeline.
I mean, you have experience of this sort of thing. How shocked were you by the report?
Well, to be perfectly frank, I don't think the report, some of the issues identified in that report are unique to Shrewsbury and Telford Hospital NHS Trust, because I deal with a lot of cases relating to other hospitals where similar sorts of things are happening on a day-to-day basis. And I think if an investigation into another NHS trust was looked at so carefully under the microscope, I think we would probably see similar findings in an investigation.
Right, so you think this could be, the tip of the iceberg, do you?
Possibly. I think a lot of this has to do with a lack of staff, lack of training, and I think the problems identified in this report are quite common in some other cases that I've dealt with over many, many years.
And where are lawyers like yourself in regards to compensation over this, specifically this trust?
Well, I think that it's a bit too early to say in relation to the claim that we're dealing with, because obviously it was a lot later and the incidents that happened were in 2020. So I think it's a bit too premature for us to discuss that.
But but presumably compensation has already been agreed, has it, or regarding other cases, or is it too early for that as well?
Possibly, because I think some of the cases were bought many years ago, and obviously there's a 3-year limitation period for cases to be bought if it's a claim relating to somebody over the age of 18. But obviously if it's a brain-injured baby, some of the cases may be still ongoing.
And when Sajid Javid says today that the staff responsible will be held to account, do you think, he's presumably talking about criminal cases against individuals as well as against the trust. Do you think that is likely or possible?
It's very difficult because it can be quite convoluted, because once a police investigation is instigated, that can take quite a long period of time. And I think it's a different burden of proof in regard to a civil claim and a criminal claim. So I think they have to be investigated very, very carefully, but it does take an awful long time.
And there are many recommendations in this report, in this review. Do you think that, the lessons will be learned?
I'd like to think so, but as I said, for over many years dealing with cases of this nature and reading serious untoward incident reports in relation to individual cases, these reports tend to identify problems and issues that have been going on that create the deaths of maternal deaths or the brain-injured children. But I keep seeing these reports year in, year out in individual cases, and lessons don't seem to be learned.
And what are the main issues that you keep seeing repeatedly?
Well, usually it's lack of experience in regard to the staff, not enough support for staff. In some cases, it's toxicity from the consultants down to the midwifery and the nurses that work on the front line. And I think that there's a lack of support for staff as well, who want to identify when problems occur or when issues occur, and there's not enough support, so they just sort of muddle through. And I think the problems then escalate, and then the maternity units become unsafe.
One thing the report speaks about a lot is culture, and particularly this culture of closing down staff or preventing staff from speaking out if they see things that are not being done properly. And that presumably is a culture that could spread across a number of trusts.
Yes, I think it's quite common, to be fair. And I think there's fear of junior members of staff reporting senior members of staff when mistakes have been made. And I think because these incidences aren't reported, it just continues and escalates, and then it becomes totally unsafe.
So the picture being painted is a pretty serious one. One lawyer, negligence lawyer today, said there were so many cases that she was seeing that it seemed that it was almost unsafe to have a baby in this country. I mean, that is extraordinary for a lawyer to say that.
I'd probably agree with her, to be honest with you, because the cases that I see on a day-to-day basis relate to stillbirth or maternal deaths, and they just don't seem to be improving the standards of care. And it's a lottery. I think it all depends on sort of the staffing levels when a person enters the maternity unit. If they're chronically understaffed, and therein lies the problem. So
in the UK in 2022, you're saying that it could be unsafe to have a baby in this country?
I would say so in some NHS trusts, obviously not all NHS trusts, but no. I think some NHS trusts do have a significant shortage of staff, which is dangerous. And it also puts a lot of pressure on the staff as well.
And just finally, Stephanie, I mean, if isn't the danger here that it kind of people lose confidence in maternity services in this country?
Yes.
Okay. Stephanie, thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.